monster.
I'm your number one fan.
Now clear your minds. Notice what scares you. It has from the very beginning.
You know, it's Halloween. I guess everyone's entitled to one good scare, huh?
Just been informed that zombies have entered the building. They're at the door. They're coming in.
Hey everyone, Corey here from the Midnight Monster Corner podcast. I'm your host as always, Corey, and alongside me is my good pal, Tony. What's going on, Tony?
Not much, bud. How you doing?
I'm doing good. How about you, man?
I'm doing great, man. Doing great. Really excited. This is going to be a good episode. Ready to dive into this one.
This is a fun one. Well, so before we jump into this one, folks, let's do a little bit of upkeep, I guess you would say. Not cleanup. I have a bad time saying that.
Yeah. Housekeeping.
But housekeeping. Thank you. That's even better. Upkeep, housekeeping, something. But yeah, so join us on all our platforms. We're pretty much everywhere. You can Google us and we'll pop up on multiple platforms, so you can check out our previous episodes up to this one. And folks, like we said before, if you want to contact us, make contact with us, the main place to do it is our Facebook group. We do interact with you guys throughout the day, every day, so make sure you head over there and just type in the search engine Midnight Monster Corner podcast. We will pop right up. It is a closed group. You ask, we'll let you in, and then you can join the fun. But with that, folks, we are doing our third installment of the month for killer animal films, and that's 1980s Alligator.
Yes.
This is an awesome one. This was a fun one.
It was, man. It had been some time since I watched this. I remember when I picked up the DVD, I found it, and at that time it was out of print. So when I did spot it, I was really excited. I think I found it, and I'll shout this out, Second and Charles again. What a place, man, to find some out of print stuff, man. You would get lucky sometimes when you went in there, and this special occasion, I was lucky enough to find a copy of it on DVD, and I snagged it up real quick because at that time it was running probably close to 50, a little bit more, 60, and some, you go to eBay or something like that. Amazon was pretty pricey too, so I saw it. I can't remember. I wish I could remember the exact price I paid for it, but I know it was under $10, so it was a steal at the end of the day. And I watched it like years ago, and there were some segments of it I forgot, but there's one segment in particular I remembered, and sure enough, when I watched it, that segment lived up to all its glory. And and we'll get into it when we do our discussion, but it definitely lived up to that memory that I had of it.
Yeah, man. Second and Charles, man. That's a just a quick shout. That's a place you find some odd stuff in.
They do. Really do. I remember when you found a couple of Anchor Bay tins up there.
Mm-hmm.
You shouted it out, and you're like, "Wow, dude, they got Anchor Bay tins up here," and I couldn't believe that. That
$2 a piece.
$2 a piece.
$2 a piece. Where will you find that in the wild?
Nowhere.
No, exactly. Second and Charles. That's where.
I believe.
Yeah, but I mean, it's honestly with Second and Charles though, it is hit and miss because
it can be.
I think with our area, we've actually walked in there and seen a few people that we actually knew from Facebook, just in the horror community, and yeah, just going through and picking through the horror section. So I mean, it is a well picked and pretty popular place. So I think it's hit or miss with that place.
It's funny you say that, man, because it seems like every time I'm over there, the horror section's moved to this like not small section, but it's in a very closed off area, and it seems like every time I go there, there's always 2 or 3 people in that section, that little enclosed section, and no one is in the horror or no one's in the action and sci-fi like sections or anything like that. The dramas, comedies, everybody's in that horror section. So sometimes I gotta wait my way through, push through sometimes to get through. I mean, it's funny, like every time, it never fails. Every time I go up there, there's at least three people there picking through it. So I'm like, well, Probably not gonna find anything. It's been a while since I found a good diamond in the rough, but I still go, just hoping to find that one.
Yeah.
Worth it.
You remember that one time we went in there? There was this guy from the Facebook group, because he actually told us his name, and then we recognized the name fast. But but he sat there. He literally was like just going through shelf by shelf, and he was just like, "Oh, $2," and just threw it in a basket. He wasn't even looking at what the titles were. He was just chunking it in a basket.
Had that $2 sticker on it. It was going in the basket.
Yeah, blew my mind.
Yeah, he walked with like 20, 25, 30 titles. I mean, it was crazy.
Just a couple weeks ago, I walked in there and I bought. I found Night Watch for $1, which was awesome because those are pretty fun little films, Night Watch and Day Watch.
Yeah.
And then I went and I found Day Watch for $2. I was like, oh, that's so awesome! I've got both movies complete for $3. It's
$3. Can't beat that, man.
no,
You cannot beat that.
no, and I think Day Watch was even. I think it was brand new. I think it was still in plastic wrap.
That's insane.
Yeah.
It seems like Manifest. It seems like Second and Charles is that one place that's still around that you can still do stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Manifest gone. I mean, Eric, of course, you can go to Eric's and do it. We always champion Scratch and Spin, but Second and Charles and Scratch and Spin are the last places I really go to pick other than the flea market. So hopefully they'll hold strong and we'll continue to pick there for years and years to come.
Oh yeah.
Like I said,
I hope our children can pick there.
Yeah, absolutely. You can find some good stuff up there. If you know what you're looking for, if you set out to find some, and you don't even have to set out to find like out of print titles. You can just go in there and browse and be surprised sometimes. So it's well worth it. You might get caught off guard one day, like I have quite a few times. So it's definitely worth it. We love hitting up Second and Charles and of course Scratch and Spin. We always champion those two stores. But yeah, just going back to what I was saying, this movie, I found it there, and man, I popped it in that night and watched it. And that had been 3 years ago, maybe. So it had been a while. So watching it again, I do remember the one scene in particular, and sure enough, that it lived up to my memory.
Well, unfortunately, like you, I actually, I don't have a copy of the movie, so I had to figure out where to watch this film, and I do need to buy a copy of this. This is the first time watch for me. But folks, if you don't have this movie, it is on YouTube right now, and there's multiple versions of it. There's like a really dark and you can't hardly see it film that's on there, and then there's one that's actually 1 second longer. It's actually really clear and pretty good quality. So I highly recommend, if you haven't seen the movie, before we get into spoiler territory, at least visit YouTube and watch this film, because it is on there fully. So yeah, it's a good one. But yeah, man, where do you want to start?
I mean, we start from the very beginning, that opening scene. I would love to talk about that, how funny that shit was. Basically just based on what happened and then the aftermath of what happened. I mean, so when the movie starts off, we start off at like, I guess it's like an alligator show where this guy is doing, I don't know if he's just fucking with an alligator, driving it crazy, pissing it off, and people are sitting there watching, applauding, and just soaking it all up. But basically, this dude gets mauled by an alligator, and he gets his ass kicked, and they have to drag him away. And this little girl is there with her parents, and she's like, the mom's just like, oh, didn't she say like, oh, that's completely fake? And the little girl's like,
the whole crowd was like, wow, that looks real.
Yeah.
It is fucking real. Like, he just got his fucking leg mauled.
It's very obvious that it's real. I just thought that was hilarious how people thought it was so fake.
But I like how the announcer was just like, folks, he is one of a kind. He is a strong trooper. He'll be fine.
Yeah. While his legs just hanging off.
Yeah.
Just getting mauled. But My favorite part of that whole sequence is afterwards. This guy talks that little girl and her parents into buying a baby alligator. So, did you not just see what happened? Like
Yeah.
that.
Well,
That's not.
I like, what was it? I think it was the father was like, so what happens when this thing gets big? And they were like, oh, it only gets as big as its cage or something like that.
Well, the funny thing was, I think that it's almost like the mom bought the alligator without the dad knowing, because it seemed like when he got home, he just bursted through the door. He's like, "Where's that damn thing?" He's like, "I'm getting rid of that damn thing." And he
Yeah, that tripped me the fuck out because I didn't know what was going on. I was like, why is this guy so angry? He just came through and he's like, where's the goddamn thing? And it's like, what's just happened? Like, did the alligator get out and shit in your shit in your shoe or something? Or what? Like, what's the deal? Like,
happened here. Yeah, dude. So he grabs the alligator from. So the little girl had it in like a what is it called? The not an aquarium, but like a.
yeah, it was like an aquarium, like little
There's
glass tank.
Yeah, there's a certain term for it. My friend's a
Oh, it's a terrarium.
yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
So she had it in one of those, and of course she was taking care of it as well as she could. So the dad just grabs it and takes it, and just like a goldfish, just plops it in the toilet and flushes the toilet, and down the drain it goes. So this alligator gets flushed. It's in the sewer, and I guess over the years it has been exposed to some chemicals that have been, which we find out later what exactly it is exposed to.
Yeah.
But after an elongated period of time, that alligator grows substantially. And
Which I will sit here and say this actually didn't surprise me. I felt that it was a very textbook concept, in my opinion, because I mean it was like, oh, okay, well, I saw this coming a million miles away. There's a genetic lab fucking with the mutation of or DNA of these animals. I mean, it's kind of textbook in a sense.
Yeah.
But I mean, for what, for the 80s, it's new and it is terrifying.
Yeah. Well, it seemed to be with a lot of films, especially in the early 80s, there was a lot of that eco disaster kind of stuff going on with nuclear waste and chemical waste that would get especially flushed down the drain. But the funny thing is, this movie didn't take place in New York like you would think. It took place in Chicago, which was actually pretty cool that they took it away from New York, because you get a slew of those movies in New York that something's flushed down the drain, and even that urban legend about alligators in the sewers of New York City, and you hear about it all the time. And they held back from basing it in New York, and they set it in Chicago. I thought that was pretty neat, a little different.
Which I will say, so growing up in, because I grew up in pretty much the suburbs of Florida when I was younger and stuff, and we had storm drains and sewers near the house and near the sidewalks and stuff, and I was always told not to go near those areas and stuff like that because there could be an alligator in there, because we were in Florida. But I mean, you have heard horror stories about there being like overgrown alligators in sewers and shit. So yeah, so this kind of hit close to home. I was like, oh,
that's when you told me about it, and you told me about the concept, you haven't seen it before. I was like, yeah, Corey's gonna dig this because he's got that Florida background. He knows gators. So when you checked it out, I was like, yeah, he's gonna like it. I already know. He's already gonna enjoy it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I like the overall premise and the story of it and everything. Concept of it's pretty cool. But yeah, like you were saying in the kind of in the plot, so you meet these I guess we can go ahead and talk about that. Basically, there's a research facility, laboratory, if you will, kind of in cahoots with the mayor. And they're basically dumping essentially their toxic waste into the sewers via dead animals.
Yeah.
And of course, he's down there feeding on whatever comes his way. And I think it's proven in this film through context that they find out that there is alternate DNA in these animals that causes them to grow a little bit bigger than normal.
Yeah, because
Um,
it causes them to have an insatiable appetite. So them to actually grow substantially. And in
mhm.
turn, that makes our alligator, which is cool because our alligator has a name. Oh, I dug the hell out of that. So the alligator's name was Ramon.
That's right.
I love it. I love that shit. So the little girl named him Ramon, and then just his name was Ramon.
Yeah, because I think when the dad storms in, I think that's like the first time you hear that name because he's like, "Where's Ramon?"
What the fuck is happening?
Yeah, I was so fucking lost. I was like, "What the hell's happening?" That was great.
I dug it. Flush
Yeah,
that second.
and through the story, you find out that the little girl is actually one of your main characters later
Love
on
that.
in the film. I thought that was neat. I was kind of hoping actually for like her to realize that that was Ramon,
Too, yeah. I was like, that would just make everything come full circle. Like
like had she like seen like a scar on him and been like, he's still alive,
her to just realize it, like, oh my god, that's the same one. Or
Yeah,
well, I don't. 'Cause I'm sure because her dad mentioned something about, oh, just tell her that the alligator just ended up just turning up dead, just like we did with the hamster or something like that. He made that comment, and I
which
was
later on in the film you do find out that she was like, I had a pet alligator. She told him that she had a pet alligator, and he had died. He didn't die.
he did not die.
Oh man.
Yeah, dude. I that whole sequence or that whole situation with the alligator just the sequence I love is when the alligator actually busted through like the street and started attacking. It just
Yeah.
seemed straight like something you'd see straight out of like a '50s monster movie.
It felt like that, didn't it?
It had that feel.
The
It
way
had
that
that
they were doing, the way that they moved the camera up and down as if the ground was moving up and down and stuff. I was
and
like, that's pretty cool.
old school Hollywood trickery. I dig it. Just the
Yeah.
whole rig and the way that it popped up, and then they superimposed the regular size alligator onto the street, which I mean, because of course that with this, it was almost like the Jaws thing, which of course this is a Jaws clone. A slew of them came out around this time. So, but this film, to set it apart from other films, has it has a lot of satire in it, and I think that sets it apart from these other Jaws clones that came out around the time because it knew what it was doing. It was self aware, and I actually enjoyed that. But that whole sequence felt very of its time, like the '50s and movies like, especially the Blob. I thought about the Blob and movies like that. It had that feel.
It really, yeah, that whole street scene really felt like, it really felt like the remake Blob in a sense.
Even that, yeah, even the remake too.
It just felt like, it was coming down the street,
Just rampage and taking everybody out. I mean, there's a high body count in this film.
Yeah, it really is.
I love that they toyed with the fact that in the beginning, so we follow our main character. His name is David Madison. He's a detective, and he's trying to figure out what's going on because originally what they think is that there's a serial killer like
In the
dumping
sewers.
bodies, yeah, down in the sewers. Which I love that angle that they thought it was somebody like killing people and then dismembering and then throwing them down the sewer. I thought that was pretty cool. Different
Mhm.
little take. And then they gradually find out that no, it's not a person doing these killings. It is a creature. Um, so I dig that too. I like the little ideas they play with in this movie.
Mhm.
They do a lot of like really cool things. And then it still, at the end of the day, feels like that satire is still held strong. Like they hold on to that theme. So I enjoyed that. I dig the fact that they went full board with it, full throttle, and they didn't apologize about it. They just didn't look back. They just I mean, they knew, of course, movies like Jaws Jaws essentially was massive. So at this time, everyone was trying to rip it off.
Mm-hmm.
Some were pretty successful. They were moderately successful, I'd say, but you're never reaching the level of Jaws. That's like the perfect creature feature.
They're
So,
still ripping Jaws off to this day.
To this day. Oh yeah, to this day. So, like I said, but the fact that they were like, yeah, we know what we're doing and we're having fun with it. And we're having a little bit of satire thrown in for good measure. I love that. The movie felt like it had an attitude, and I was completely on board with it. It's like, hell yeah, I'm along for the ride. I'm here to see a big dumb creature feature, killer animal flick. That's all I care about. And sure enough, you get the carnage, you get the mayhem, you get all the stuff you would hope for in a movie like this. So they don't skimp on that at all.
Mm-hmm. No, none whatsoever. Yeah, they even the gore, man, there was some really gory scenes. One of the things I wanted to talk about right off the rip was some of the quotes in this film. They were the most random quotes.
A handful of This is good.
So there was like one of them that I actually jotted down because I found it kind of funny. But they were talking that I think it was the first victim that they had found in the sewer, and they're talking about, I think it was like a part of the cleaning crew or something, and they were just casually just talking, and it was just a foot or whatever, and the one guy says, or I think it was even David, maybe Madison or whatever, but he said had a funeral for a man's toe one time, and then he was like, I think somebody else chimed in and was like, must have been a small casket.
Very dry humor.
Yeah, I mean, it was like, but yeah, because they were just talking about, like, because they literally only found like the guy's leg or something, or maybe it was like a hand or something, or like a whole arm. It was either a leg or an arm, and then they were talking about finding like someone's toe one time, and they were like, well, what'd you do with it? Oh, we had a small funeral for it. That must have been a small casket.
I think that was David's character. I think that was his character that mentioned something, because I remember that sequence. Yeah. There's a lot of little moments like that in this film that are just like, you hear that right? That's pretty funny. I like that.
Yeah, even like in the police station, we talked about this before the show, but the police station where David wants to go down and investigate, no one wants to go down with him because throughout the film you find out that David's partner got killed.
Got a reputation of losing partners in like various ways.
Mm-hmm.
Them get killed and whatnot. So he's got a reputation, and no one's wanting to join him on any like investigation that he's doing.
Yeah. So like at one point, he goes out and starts asking various police officers if they want to go with him, and I distinctly remember seeing one guy holding up a paper airplane, going, "I got too much paperwork I got to do."
Way too much going on. Can't help you. Yeah, just any excuse they can.
Yeah, there was a lot of randomness too. It wasn't just that. There was a lot of randomness in this film. The bomber.
Oh yeah, that sequence is weird.
Yeah, it was.
That scene is weird, but I guess it plays into the narrative too, because he later takes that. Well, he doesn't take, because it's a fake bomb, but he takes the charge or something, and he takes like dynamite that's in storage and evidence and uses it in the climax, which is funny. So maybe, I don't think that the guy had real dynamite though. I thought it was like a dummy.
He had literally a radio attached to him.
Yeah, so it wasn't like. But I remember him grabbing like something like that. It almost looked identical. Yeah. And then you get later in the climax of the film. So I don't know. I don't. But the whole sequence itself was random. Like the dialogue, the back and forth. Yeah. That was weird.
Well, he claimed that he was the killer.
He was the killer, yeah. And I'm sure, I'm almost positive that people do that.
Oh, yeah.
you see it a lot in movies, but in real life, I'm sure that a couple of police stations, if something's going on, that there's people that out there that are crazy that come in and confess to everything, and they have nothing to do.
Yeah.
So it's very.
They're trying to piggyback off that spotlight.
Yeah. Almost like try to. But which is weird. I never quite understood that, but people are crazy, so
Yeah.
you can't really understand it. It's just people are random and weird.
Yeah.
So, but that sequence was crazy. Thought that was quite interesting to say that.
Yeah. What about you? What are some random ass moments that you thought?
Random ass moments. Well, we talk about satire moments when the alligator is loose and attacking, and the camera crews and everybody's there, the news station's there, and they're trying to track the alligator and his movement so they can neutralize him. But then there's people like vendors out there selling like alligator toys and stuff out of people's morbid curiosity just to make a quick buck. That's where the satire comes in.
There's even a guy selling an actual baby alligator in one scene.
Oh yeah, and then people are selling like fake toy alligators and just it's just like, man, this movie is a straight satire.
It really is.
Zero fucks given. They don't care.
One of the things that we didn't really talk about was before he busted up through the street and everything. There's a moment where David kind of figures out about the alligator. And because he went down into the sewers, and that's where he sees the alligator. Kelly, which is a fellow officer that followed him down there with him, got killed by the alligator, and he saw the whole thing go down. Woke up in a hospital, and he even tells his police chief, which is Chief Clark, tells Chief Clark, hey, I love Chief Clark's character too. We'll get into that in a minute, but. But so he goes to Clark, and Clark's like, oh, alligator? Okay, well, it seems like Chief Clark listens to David quite, a lot. He likes David, I think.
He seems to have like a respect for him, and they seem to have a respect for each other. They seem to work well together, and yeah.
But yeah, so he he tells them about it. So they go to Marissa. Dr. Marissa, which is she's the doctor who you met in the beginning of the film, the young child, but now she's an adult. And she's like, oh no, if an alligator was down in the sewers, it would only be at max maybe 10 feet long, 15 feet long, and it would be scrawny, wouldn't be built big or muscular, nothing like that. So then, like, later on, once there's like a reporter that, pretty much heckles Madison at first, and then goes down there for himself, gets mauled, but while he's getting mauled, he's taking pictures. And coincidentally, the only thing that surfaces of him is his camera. And now here's actual physical proof of this ginormous fucking alligator down in the sewer. So everyone that heckled him was like, oh shit. He was right.
Yeah.
And even then, there's like a news reporter talking to her, and she was like, yeah, he could at least be 25 to 30 feet long. I was like, wow. I think he even he just cut the camera or turned the TV off, like he didn't want to hear it. That shit was funny. But yeah, they
comedy in this.
Huh?
There's a lot of little moments of comedy in this. I mean, almost like you have to really be paying attention. You'll miss like a line that's like, oh wow, that was funny. Like it's one of those. If you weren't really paying full attention to it, you'd miss it. So you really got to pay full attention to the dialogue to hear every little in joke that they put in the movie, because there's quite a few.
Yeah, there was some comical moments too, and even foreshadowing, actually. Believe it or not, I caught one glimpse of foreshadowing, and there might have been more. But there's a scene where Madison is kind of like the people are treating him like he's crazy,
Yeah.
And he's in the locker room, and he opens up the locker, and there's an alligator right there. But the thing that I said, there's a little bit of foreshadowing. If you look on the wall behind the officer that's reading the newspaper article, there's a poster right behind him, and it's got it almost looked like tools, but in the shape of an alligator on a poster behind him. And I was like, oh, look at that. That's neat. So I made sure to write that note down.
Well, thinking about that, piggybacking off what you were talking about, there's a scene in David's, I think he lives in an apartment, where he's in the living room and he's talking on the phone, I believe. And then behind him is a poster and it says Ramon on it. So I thought that was pretty neat too. So there's a little bit of background stuff going on too.
Yeah.
Keep the audience kind of engaged with the story. It's like, oh, it's neat. Like it says Ramon Santiago. I don't know if that's a painter or because it was like a painting, kind of like a canvas kind of thing. So
I did notice that. Yeah.
I don't know if it's like a painter or somebody, but it's a designer or somebody. But I saw it back there. I was like, that's cool. That's neat.
That is neat.
And it's in his apartment, so it's right there in your face. I mean, really missed that.
But in the next scene, they pretty much set up this whole plan where they're going to flush the gator out.
Mm-hmm.
And so they go down there with like pots and pans, and they're beating on them and stuff.
I was wondering at first. I was like, "What are they doing?" Like this guy's going. I thought at first he was like going to use that as like a shield. I'm like, dude, that's not going to help because he only had like a trash can lid. I'm like, I'm sorry, buddy, but that's not going to do you any good against a giant alligator.
Well, the funny thing is when they're unloading like all the weaponry and stuff, I noticed they were like pulling out like fucking RPGs and stuff, and I was like, what are they gearing up for? Godzilla? Like, are you serious right now? Dude, I was like, was that? I even wrote down, was the RPG necessary? Like, it's like, okay, I see machine guns coming out, automatic rifles coming out, and then next thing you know, they started unloading fucking RPGs, and I was like, what's going on?
That's fucking funny, man. They're ready for this fucker to actually balloon like Godzilla and just take over the fucking city. They're like, not on my watch. They were fucking ready, man. Surprised they didn't pull out grenade launchers and shit like that too, like some fucking bazookas and all kinds of crazy shit.
Yeah. Oh man, it was a fun watch. All the fun stuff.
This movie's a blast, man. It really is. I forgot how much I enjoyed this movie. I mean, just watching it that one time. I think I did it for like the 31 Days of Horror challenge when I was still doing that at the time, like for Halloween. So it was at, I want to say 3 or 4. I'm thinking like maybe 3 or 4 years ago. But damn, I forgot how much fun this movie was. I really thoroughly enjoyed it because there's a lot of little stuff. I feel like I'm a broken record when it comes to that, but we've been watching a lot of movies where little things help really sell the movie for me. Like little touches, little moments that, if you're watching it for the first time or something like that, you might miss. But if you go back and rewatch it, you'll see like little, like you said, the foreshadowing, the stuff in the locker room, the stuff at his house, and little shit like that. I really appreciate those little touches. So there's a lot of stuff that we've been watching lately that includes that stuff. So it's been, I feel like a broken record, but seriously, we've been on a roll with like little, Easter eggs, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and it is neat, watching a film. Not so much critique it, because I feel like now when I go to sit down and watch a film, I do critique it a lot. But one of the things that sets it aside is I look for little oddball stuff. I guess I've always kind of looked for oddball stuff like that because I've pointed stuff out to you before when we've watched films together.
Yeah, we've watched stuff together, and you've
for instance, like Blood Rage.
Yeah.
The scene where they're sitting on the couch, there's a full wine glass, and the next thing you know, it cuts, and it's an empty wine glass, and then there's another full wine glass right behind. It's like, editing sucked.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So
There's so much of that though, too, man. If you really wrap your mind around all of the little hiccups that they have on, especially when it comes to editing, oh, dude, it'll drive you crazy. Like goofs and stuff like that. If you really pay attention, oh man, there's so many. But when I say when you're shooting a film, especially back in the day, it was easy to mess that stuff up. So easy. I think every movie's a victim of that. There's no movie that's completely perfect when it comes to complete. Well, I mean, for sure, there's timeless classics out there, but not your average film. Let's just say that.
no,
Everybody's a victim of it in some capacity. Just how glaring is that problem?
yeah. So we'll talk a little bit about the gore.
No, yeah, the gore. Well, I did appreciate that you saw some when the guy, especially when the guy got pulled out of the water. He had nubs. You see a lot of nubs and like a lot of like limbs getting bitten off. See some pretty gnarly stuff in this. I was actually I do remember the first time I saw it, I was surprised at the amount of gore that we did see. I was really surprised by that. Which is really cool. I did some digging around and I found a little bit of trivia. Apparently Bryan Cranston worked on this film, which was really cool. I did no idea. Apparently he was on a late night show and he had mentioned something about working on this film. He handled like the special effects with the alligators at the finale. Spoiler alert, when the alligator gets blown up, all the alligator guts and stuff like that. Like apparently Bryan Cranston did all that.
Wow.
So that's pretty neat. Like Malcolm in the Middle, his dad, and of course Walter White. Everybody knows him in Breaking Bad now.
Mm-hmm.
But he's a phenomenal actor. I've always really, really loved Bryan Cranston. But for him to start off his career doing that was really neat. That completely took me off guard. I did not expect that.
I think the first time I seen him was on Seinfeld.
Yeah, on Seinfeld, yeah, he was the doctor.
Yeah. I was like, oh, holy shit, that's Malcolm in the Middle's dad.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I remember definitely.
Yeah. He was like Newman's friend, wasn't he?
Wasn't he the... Was he
not.
the... Now I'm trying to... I'm kind of spacing. I thought he was the gynecologist. Maybe he's not. I'm not quite sure. I do remember, though, he was on Seinfeld. I remember watching that episode, but Jesus, I mean, you're talking... I was watching Seinfeld when I was little, so I can't exactly remember what he was doing. Or what his job was. I'm pretty sure he was a doctor in some capacity, though.
But yeah, special effects was on point with me. And going back to what you were saying, how you noticed that like people were having more so like nubs and stuff. Well, that's because that's the instinct of an alligator is to rip apart their prey. And 9 times out of 10, they go for wounded animals anyways. So I don't like growing up in Florida, you kind of learn about stuff like that, how to act in a river and stuff. Like they tell you to, stay calm if you're in the water. Don't splash around a whole lot because they think that you're a wounded animal and they're going to come up and they're going to first bite to see if they get a reaction out of you. And if you're still alive and you react, then they're going to go full force.
Yeah.
And 9 times out of 10, what they do at first is when they bite, they start rolling and tearing off the limbs and stuff.
Yeah.
And so that's what you've seen him doing. I felt a real appreciation when watching this film and seeing him do that, because a lot of times you saw him grab a hold and start twirling.
Yep.
Stuff. I thought that was pretty neat.
That was in the beginning, that opening sequence when he was gnawing on the guy and like pretty much tearing up his leg. We saw it cut back to the alligator rolling, and I was like, that's what they do. So that's cool that they put that in instead of an alligator just attacking and just not doing what comes natural to an alligator. They actually put that in the film.
Yeah.
So I appreciate the attention to detail when it comes to getting that right.
Yeah. Definitely. I like how because it almost didn't seem like they CGI'd this too much. I mean, there might have been a little bit, but I don't think a whole lot.
It was a practical effect, like I wouldn't say puppet. It's not a puppet. It's a animatronic kind of deal.
Yeah,
So
I wondered how they pulled off certain scenes. Like they probably made sets to make it look smaller, well, larger, but they probably
right.
made small sets.
They did, and then they also took the Jaws approach where less is more. You know, we're starting to lose function on the animatronic and the machine pretty much. So we're going to show it a little bit less, and then do quick edits and stuff like that to kind of mask the technical issues we're having, which they did pretty good. I was thoroughly impressed. I mean, they're not the greatest effects in the world, of course, but what they were able to do, I enjoyed. I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Especially toward the end. You know, that's pretty gnarly. But then my favorite stuff is when they took a regular gator and they superimposed it on like the street corner and stuff like that, so it looked massive, but it was just a regular sized alligator.
Yeah.
They did a lot of quick shots of when someone would come down the sewer, they would do a cut to the alligator and you'd see his eyes opening up and stuff like that. So they just do a quick cut to a regular sized gator and shoot it like that, do a super close up so you wouldn't see the scale, which was cool. I appreciate because they have to work with what they can. That was neat. They did a lot of that. I saw that quite a few times in this movie where they would catch like the alligator almost waking up and saying, "Oh, it's feeding time." So as soon as somebody would come down that sewer, he would just completely obliterate them.
Yeah. Yeah, I enjoyed that. I like there's one in particular that I like, and it's the scene where the alligator's in the pool.
Oh yeah,
That's terrible.
It's so funny.
Yeah.
There's no way in hell that alligators fit in that pool, but it.
Well, I mean that's the thing, you know. And again, growing up in Florida, you were told to check your pools and stuff before you got in them.
You would think it was like an Olympic-sized swimming pool, but it was almost like one of those fake little plasticky pools that you could buy from the fucking store or something. Like it did not look like a large pool at all.
I was talking about the one with the kid where oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they had a diving board and everything.
It didn't seem, well, I don't know, the way I saw it, it didn't seem like it was that big of a pool. Which I understand because, of course, they're going to have to put a regular-sized gator in this pool, but still, to scale, it didn't quite make sense. So I kind of got a laugh out of that whole sequence. And I couldn't believe they had the balls to do that to that kid. Once again, that's another what the fuck. Like, I can't believe they did that, but they had the balls to do it. So
I just like how they were like, walk the plank.
That's the second time we've had that happen so far in this review series where a kid gets mauled by like a killer animal. It's crazy.
So they're going to push the subject somehow.
Oh yeah, this is like man, I'm dumbfounded because they don't really normally do that too often. Maybe not as often as I thought. Maybe they do it more often than I thought.
I think back in the day they probably could have got away with it, so they did it.
Yeah.
Nowadays, you know, it seems like anything past the 90s, they really shied away from doing stuff like that.
Well, it's almost like when you do something like that, you realize that, hey, nobody's safe. Like you would think kids are going to be safe, but no. If they're willing to do that, then all bets are off.
I mean,
like,
in real life, if there was an alligator in a pool, and a kid,
yeah.
you know,
Absolutely.
Yeah. I just like how she flipped it on, and the kid wearing the blindfold noticed the alligator before the other kids did.
Yeah. Exactly.
He's like, oh, too late. They shoved him in.
Yeah, he was like, they were making him walk the plank because they were little pirates that dressed up like pirates. That was terrible. That was awful. And then they just start running. They just take off and start running back to the house like you little shits.
You murdered your friend.
I know, dude. It was fucking crazy.
I hope you can live with yourself. Poor Timmy's dead now.
Poor Timmy.
I don't know his name. I'm just going to call him Timmy.
What did you think? So I got a question for you. What did you think of our Quint character in this movie? The great white hunter that they bring in to take care of the alligator.
Oh my God, the biggest
Oh,
fucking douchebag of the '80s, right
oh,
there.
he was great, man. He was so misogynistic and so arrogant and so cocky, and
Uh,
it was so wonderful.
I love how I like how he just walked up to these three guys like on the street corner, and he's
Oh,
like, "Here, you work for me now."
that shit was hilarious, man.
They were pretty much like, "Fuck this white guy, I'm out."
He's like, that's not how it goes. It's not how that's not exactly how it goes in the hood there, bud. I hate to tell you. Like, you know, walking up in here and call the shots, man, just because you get what he gave him a couple dollars or something. Like, that's not how that works. But then the one guy ends up following him anyway. I was like,
Yeah,
no,
he,
man,
he
don't
like
follow.
told what was it? He told him you get $10 a day for 3 days or something like that a piece, and the one guy's like, "I get 20."
And then he tried to play on their ego, saying, "Oh, you must be a bunch of pussies or something." Like, you can't. Yeah, and that works. That always works, man. Anytime you, especially when it's a group of dudes, you play on them being like a bitch or something like that. Then like, oh, okay, you got me. I'll go along with you. They never want to look like less than a man in front of their friends. So of course,
I think he
had to go in.
so he was strictly out to just hunt this gator, right? He wanted this as a trophy, right?
That's it. Yep, they hired him basically to hunt and kill the gator because he had apparently hunted every big game there was, and he needed a new challenge. And this was the best man for the job. He was, like I said, these characters fit the characters of Jaws. He was our Quint. So essentially, you had everybody fit into a character that was the same character in Jaws.
Yeah,
So
because even
Doctor, you had the
Marissa
Schneider,
was Cooper.
Cody. So like you had them all in this movie. So
Yeah.
this movie knew what it was doing.
Yeah, it was playing off of Jaws
Absolutely.
in a sense.
But
Yeah,
what film covering this subject wasn't doing that at the time though? So
yeah,
why I give it credit for adding that satire. Like at least they're bringing something to it that's different.
yeah, yeah, and it's something that I don't believe we've ever seen before in a killer animal film. You know, what film has covered alligator previous to this film?
Well, there was a lot of like Italian like alligator films that came out.
Yeah, because when did Eaten Alive come out?
Ooh. You mean Toby Hooper's Eaten Alive?
Mhm.
Came out in '77, I believe.
Okay, so that came out before this.
Yes.
So okay, so there was films out there, but I don't think as
As many. No.
yeah,
It was.
yeah,
There was a couple, like I said, there was a couple Italian ones that the Italian ones came out around the same time too, because of course, you know, they saw what was happening with Jaws, so of course they're gonna put their hat into the ring and kind of jump on that bandwagon as well,
hmm
sell us on some more killer animals too, which I love the Italian approach to doing like a Jaws ripoff. I just enjoy the hell out of it. There's something about Italian films that are so unique, and they just don't feel like a North American film. They feel completely different, and that's what appeals to me the most. I love what they're able to do, like ripping off what films are popular in the States at the time. They just add their own little flair to it, and I really appreciate it. I mean, we've seen countless of Italian rip-off movies, and
Oh yeah,
they so glorious, dude.
Umberto Lenzi.
Oh my God, the king of it, Bruno Mattei.
hmm
Guys did it so well. I mean, they blatantly ripped off stuff, and they made no apologies about it. And I love them for it.
No,
They just give a fuck. They didn't care.
no,
They had the balls to do it, and I respect it.
yeah, man. So something that I did notice that maybe you're not wanting to talk about. There was a cat jump scare.
God, of course.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and it was with our Quint character, right?
yeah.
Because he went down that alley and he saw movement in the trash,
Yeah,
and the cat jumped out.
fucking cat jump scare. Gotta have them.
Yep, I did notice that.
I wanted to. What I was gonna do at one point was make a list on Letterboxd of all the films that had a cat jump scare, but that list would just be compacted with movies because there's so many. It
Mhm.
was such a trope at the time.
Really was.
It really was,
Still
dude.
is. Still
Yeah.
is.
Oh, they still do it.
To this day.
Yeah. Which mainstream audiences don't bring up the fact. I mean, a lot of the mainstream audiences, they bring up the fact that, oh, the final girl's going to trip and fall. If we're doing a final chase, then there's going to be a trip and fall. Like, that's brought up a lot, but the cat jump scare thing is not really brought up too often.
Mm.
Don't hear that very much. So, but it happens so much that you would think it would be so common with something like that.
Is it a bad thing that on these reviews I look for it? Just to mention it.
Yeah.
But yeah, going back to this film though, I'm losing track of thought a little bit, but
There's a
but
lot
it's-
going on in this movie.
yeah,
I mean, plot wise, no, it's a simple plot,
no,
but
it's a
lot of-
simple plot, yeah. But I just love that. So, okay, so it does, like you kind of hit on this earlier, but so there are a couple things that this film strongly basically emphasizes on, and one of which is pretty much animal cruelty,
yeah,
you know, because of the labs and stuff. And again, that's the 80s. We covered it on the last episode. And then also, you know, kind of big corporations dipping their hands into politics and cover-ups, you know. And if a film has subliminal messages, this was one of them, you know. It's definitely emphasizing the fact that there is this company that is messing with genetics, and you know, basically this company is like paying the mayor to kind of turn the other way and really try and turn um the press, I guess you would say, away from this too, because I think they even make reference to, well, if the press gets a hold of this isn't going to be good, you know. They can stop it all day long, and they did, because they fired you know, our main character at one point as a detective.
they did.
And you can even see the chief did not want that.
Yeah,
you know?
he respected him. He was a good friend of his, so he was not happy about it, but he was just doing his job. Basically,
Because he was like, this isn't coming from me, but the mayor wants your badge.
Which I like. What this movie did also was they had the mayor character actually be like a spineless, like just a spineless like patsy, like because usually with these movies you take the mayor and he's the one guy saying, hey, you know, we're not shutting down anything, we're not doing this. He takes charge and stuff like that. But this mayor was such a little like yes man and a patsy and just basically spineless, and I love that they made the mayor, they gave him that character trait, because the guy that was really calling the shots was the head of this company, and he was basically he was the one in charge. He was telling the mayor what to do. He was telling his lackeys in the lab what to do. He was keeping everything on the low because there's a big party. I think his daughter was getting married or something. She was getting married to the head of the scientists that were conducting the experiments. So he wanted everything to go over well. He didn't want anything to interfere. So he was trying to keep everything low, and he had the mayor in his pocket. And if he sank, the mayor was going to sink. So they had that going on where the mayor had to do pretty much exactly what he said just to keep his position of power. So there was a lot of that going on. They really sell you on, you know, these corporations and stuff like that. They're the real spearheads of, you know, corruption and greed, and they're the ones that call the shots. You know, you have political officials basically as stool pigeons, or, you know, they're basically like your guinea pigs, not guinea pigs, but you're like, I don't know, what's the word I'm thinking of? Your scapegoats. There it is. They're
Mhm.
basically scapegoats. They take all the, the abuse and everything like that, and behind the scenes, the corporations are, calling all the shots. So I love that they did that. They made the mayor's just basically spineless. There's even a scene where he's at the party and he's basically the head of the corporation sitting there talking and having a conversation. The mayor's just kind of chiming in, just saying exactly what he's saying, just to be like, just piggybacking off of what he's saying. And you could tell he's just a spineless guy with no
Mhm.
real ambition other than just to, yes, sir, kind of be that character. So I
Mhm.
dug that. I like that. That was great.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that whole end sequence too.
Oh, dude, that was going into the beginning of the discussion. What we were talking about, that was the scene in particular I was talking about.
Yeah.
So when the alligator crashes that wedding reception, it is fucking hilarious, man.
Yeah.
Because he comes in basically just bulldozing over people. When he hits them, they go flying into tables and canopies and shit. Like they're basically like rag dolls. It is so funny
Yeah.
that he's just eating everybody. He's taking out, but of course, conveniently enough, he's taking out all the people you're led to hate in this movie, which I love. The convenience of it, like all the people that you can't stand that are kind of trying to cover everything up, and they have no sympathy for anybody that's being affected by this tragedy and this and that. But the alligator gets his comeuppance, or he gets like the final say on these guys, and he just tears them up. But there's collateral damage as well. Like a lot of people get killed.
Oh,
So
yeah. The main guy, the guy that runs the laboratory or whatever, or I guess owns the company.
I was confused. There was a lot of people that ended up dying, but I don't know if the lead scientist guy was one of them. I wasn't quite sure. I was kind of paying attention to that, but then there was just a lot of carnage going on, so I didn't see
Yeah.
particular. If he was one that got killed, then they didn't really make a point to show it as much as they did with the mayor, and then they did with the head of the company.
Yeah.
So
I don't know that he did or not. I know it looked like somebody got swallowed whole. Maybe that was him. I'm not sure. I know the bride got launched into the pool.
oh, dude, so funny,
That was hilarious.
so good.
And then he goes up and just smashes that limo around the guy.
Dude, he went Street Fighter on that damn limo and just
Didn't he?
completely demolished it. It
Dude,
completely demolished it.
that
So
was
good.
great.
Yeah. He's pushing the mayor up against it. So funny.
Yeah, he went to town on that limo, and then went back to where he was comfortable,
Yeah.
and that's where David found him. So David actually became the hero of the day and blew him up. I really like that part because he goes back to the sewer, and David tracks him, and David devises a quick plan to lure him back out to where he could kill him, and conveniently, as David goes to make his escape because he set a bomb up for 2 minutes, he goes to climb up the manhole, can't get out because this woman parks the car on the manhole lid, and he's like caught in between because the gator is just underneath him, so he really just cannot escape.
Which
I love
that
that.
whole sequence reminded me of Chud and also the Blob. When we go back again to the Blob remake, that happens. There's a sequence where characters get the manhole is pretty much like completely closed off, and then they drive like a vehicle over it, so they can't escape. So the threat is looming, underneath them, and then they're also trapped. So it heightens up the tension in
Hmm.
those scenes and makes it more enjoyable for the viewer. So I thought that was a callback to, well, even though this movie, of course, came out before, I just thought, not that to say that ripped off, because it didn't, of course, this came out before, but it just
Yeah.
reminded me of those scenes. And then, because that's real tension building.
It's happened a couple other times. There was another film that I watched actually recently, where it was a zombie film, and forget what movie it was, but it was a zombie film from like the Ukraine or whatever. But they tried escaping through the tunnels and the sewers, and military drove up and parked their vehicles on all the manholes to where they couldn't get out of the sewers. So I thought that was a neat touch. But
also, now that I think about it, it also happened in Slugs too. Just thought about that. It's another movie that it happens in. So yeah,
happens quite often. But Marissa saves the day. She shoved the old lady out of the way.
Good.
I thought that was so funny. Just as she shoves her out of the way to back up the vehicle, the wood chipping company or whatever that was in front of her moves their truck, so she was able to move it forward in the nick of time because David makes his escape, and and then there's a nasty explosion.
We only had like 2 seconds to spare. It was crazy.
I liked that whole sequence because it went back and forth, like to him running out of the tunnel versus 1 second. That was pretty cool. And then it blew up.
What do you think about how fast they jumped into the sack together? Like, that was quick. Because they played off to where, so David's character originally didn't like her because she kind of like scoffed at his idea that there was a giant alligator in the sewers.
Yeah.
There's already tension there between them.
Yeah.
Well, especially him, because he's just like, he's not paying her any attention. She tries to say, hey, I'm sorry I didn't take you seriously. I just didn't believe that something like this could ever happen. And he's just completely ignoring her. He's really, really into like the operation and making sure that this happens, like it's a positive outcome. So he's ignoring her the whole time, this and that. But then all of a sudden there's a twist, there's a turn, and they start having like good chemistry with each other. Yeah. And then soon enough, boom, they're in a relationship. I'm like, damn, that was fast. Like it was quick, dude. I've seen it before, but it just kind of took me off guard. I was like, wow. It went from like really not respecting each other to just hopping into the sack together. And I was like, damn, that was pretty damn quick.
He even makes a comment to her that I picked up on where he said something about she had really nice tits. So he actually said that, and I was like, oh my God.
That was one of the lines. I wrote that down. I was like, damn, that was a good piece of dialogue. This is so good.
You know what else? I mentioned this. Well, I didn't mention it, but I wrote it down in my notes. They kept referencing his hair and how much hair loss.
Yeah.
Like,
so.
God.
Yeah, that was like a running joke throughout the movie. And apparently that was Robert Forster's idea. He was doing jokes about it, and then the screenwriter kind of wrote it into the script because of his humor with it. So apparently that was just off of his jokes. Yeah. And then throughout the film they kept repeating it. It was just so funny that they just kept back to it.
The pet store clerk or whatever was like, yeah, at first, like the first time I saw that was in the pet store. He walks up to the pet store clerk. He's like, I got the same problem you have. And he was like, what? And he goes, your hair.
Yeah.
First it starts thinning out. And next thing you know, you look like me. And he actually gave him a tip. He was like, if you just wet it and comb it over, no one will ever know a difference.
That was the police officer told him that. He's like, yeah, that was, dude, yeah. It just kept going on in the movie. And
throughout the entire movie.
Great.
So we talked a little bit about this is kind of going back, but Chief Clark. So Chief Clark, I loved how Chief Clark every time something would happen or something, he's like, oh, well, let's nothing to talk about, guys.
Yeah,
he's like quick to like back him up. It's hilarious.
You're basically like Chief, like doesn't want to talk to reporters, doesn't want to give them any information, shutting everything down as quick as possible. But he's played by Michael Gazzo, who is Frank Pantangeli from The Godfather Part 2. So he's such a great actor, man. He killed it in The Godfather Part 2. Such an amazing supporting actor. So he's just so uptight and kind of skittish and kind of it's just great in this movie to see his character. and just for him to play out the way just your prototypical police chief, very high strung, but still respects like his detective and stuff like that, and they have a good kind of morale chemistry, and they seem to really respect each other, and it's cool to see that, and they didn't go that prototypical hot-headed detective can't get along with the police chief. The police chief's pulling him into the office. You're too you're taking too many risks. You need to. They didn't play that angle. They had two, a detective and a police chief that seemed to really respect each other. So that was cool. They don't play on expectations that you would normally see.
Yeah. Yeah, I dug it. I dug the chemistry between the two. Yeah. Everything about this film I enjoyed.
So fun. It's a blast, man.
I went into it giving it a low rating, but I went back and I ended up changing it because, just talking about it, I like it a lot more than what I thought I did, So, and we'll get into that. I guess you want to get into ratings now?
Yeah, we can. I think it's cool that, the first time you see it, you kind of like, you're thinking one thing and then thinking about it a little bit more, and then just having a discussion on and stuff like that kind of sways a little bit, like your thought process. And you think it's good now, man. Wait till that second viewing where you realize a lot of stuff that's going on and you can see it, and you don't you can't unsee it. So it makes the movie a little better.
Yeah.
And then in certain aspects, it's like, well, that's just I missed that joke originally. Now I caught this one, and I was like, holy shit, I didn't even know that. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, I always champion movies that get a rewatch. Not to say that we don't like this movie, but even if you go into a movie first time you see it, it doesn't really live up to your hype or your expectations, and you kind of are down on it. Never give up, man. Give it a second watch. Sometimes and you'll end up liking it more than you thought you did. Or you might be sitting down watching a movie for the first time and you're not in the best of moods, and that could affect your viewing. I mean, it happens. So I always champion like a rewatch, even if you don't like the film. But if you like the film, definitely give it another chance and watch it again, because it'll start to become one of your favorites sometime. Which there's a lot of films that happened to me. A perfect example of that is a movie called Killer Party. I watched it. I enjoyed it. This and that. But every time I watch it, more and more, it becomes one of my favorite movies of all time. Like it just keeps growing on me, and I keep enjoying it more and more and more. So I can say personal experience, having been through it, like rewatches are key. There's a lot of movies that even I didn't enjoy first time I watched it, then turning back around and watching it again, and a couple times afterwards, I've completely turned around my feelings on it. I actually quite enjoy them now. So,
yeah. Before we get into ratings, going back, something else that we were talking about earlier with the whole, how it could have played off of Jaws a little. There is a scene where they're in a pond and they're throwing grenades in the water. It just dawned on me that they did that in Jaws.
Yeah.
They were using sticks of dynamite, throwing the dynamite in the water. So, yeah, there's a lot of Jaws reference in here.
Yeah. Oh, it knows what it's doing. It knows what it's well aware of what it's doing. But thank God, it wouldn't have been as good if they didn't add that satire. That satire helps it for me.
Yeah.
Really, because even when we were talking about the whole vendor thing, when they're trying to sell all this merchandise and stuff off of the insane tragedies that have been happening with alligators, that seems like something that would really happen. I mean, you were just discussing it a little bit, like something like that would probably happen. People have like a morbid curiosity, so it's not too far out of the realm of possibility that we would have a scenario play out like that.
Yeah.
So it's cool that they play on that a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. But as far as ratings, on Letterboxd, I originally gave this a 3.5. but I have gone back and changed it. I say 4 now.
Nice.
Yeah, and I think my biggest problem comes down to lighting, honestly, because it's edited well. It's got a good story. Even though I'm not wanting to say it mimics Jaws, I would say more or less plays off Jaws. It kind of piggybacks off Jaws a little.
Yeah.
But it's got its own storyline. Like you said, it's the added satire that really makes this what it is, versus just a blatant ripoff. So yeah, I'm good with giving it a 4. I had a lot of fun watching this, and it honestly took me talking about it to realize how much fun I had with this one. Actually,
It helps, man, for sure.
Oh, yeah.
I'm right there with you. I'm right there with you, buddy. I gave it a 4 as well. It's by no means a perfect film. There's technical issues, and there's issues when it comes. I don't want to say the special effects and everything like that, because that's what adds to the charm. But it's not. Of course, it's not a perfect film, but it's a fun film. It's really fun. It knows what it's doing with the satire. It delivers on the carnage. It delivers on even some of the characters are great. Like you really start to like you feel for this David Madison character, your detective, because he really gets shit on by a lot of people in this movie. But then toward the end, he develops this relationship with this doctor, and he even like little moments when, I mean, we didn't really talk about it, but so him and the doctor kind of have like a little falling out. Not really. He says something, he regrets it. She leaves. He goes to her house and talks to her mom, and her mom's really like just a motor mouth, just won't stop talking. And he's just being very polite and friendly to her, and kind of making small talk with her. And then even still, she comes out and he's like, "Listen, I'm kind of an asshole sometimes, so I wanted to apologize to you and say, hey, I'm sorry for the way that came off." So they get, everything's all good with them. And then after they leave, they're discussing how to come out, or how to go about, attacking the alligator and essentially destroying the alligator. And she's like, "Well, I could just get my mom in here and she could talk it to death." little things like that are neat.
I picked up on that, and I at one point she references, or maybe maybe it's Madison that says something about, "I'll put your mom on the phone with the chief," or something. The chief's like, "No."
Yeah.
I did notice that, and I was kind of wondering if maybe because there was like some editing issue or something. I was wondering if like maybe like there was previous dialogue between her mom and the chief at one point or something, because he said something about, well, we could just put him on the phone with her or something. And he was like, "No."
Yeah. Well, because they even established that she's kind of like a fast talker, and just goes on and on and on. Even in the beginning of the movie, when you see her with, the doctor's character when she's a younger girl, she's really talkative and stuff like that. So they kind of, that comes around full circle toward the end too.
Yeah.
Little moments like that, man, it adds to the charm. I enjoy it. I had just a blast revisiting it. I've been having a really fun time revisiting some of these films I hadn't seen in a while, just because we're covering them on the show. So this is another example of, man, this was really fun.
Yeah.
So I definitely, I stand by my rating for 4-star.
Definitely. Awesome. Well, you got anything else to add? You ready to land it?
Yeah, man. Ready to land.
All right.
Pretty good.
Yeah. Well, folks, you've been watching the Midnight Monster Corner podcast, and we hope you enjoyed this episode. We hope we didn't ruin it for you. But feel free, it is on YouTube right now, so you can actually check it out on YouTube, the full film. And it's actually, like I said, it's pretty good quality for what it is. Just go check it out, guys. But with that, we appreciate everything you guys do, and keep us going. Make sure you join the discussion on Facebook. And again, tell your friends. And if you've liked this episode or liked our previous episodes, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe those. And share them on Facebook. If you've got friends and family that loves horror, make sure that you tell them about our podcast. And also check us out on our Facebook group. Tell your friends to check us out on our Facebook group. We will be doing a suggestion episode for next month because we're going to roll this whole theme into next month as well. So make sure that you go check it out, guys, and give suggestions for our suggestion episode. But yeah, with that, Tony, you got anything?
No, I mean we are a closed group on the Facebook group, but send in requests and we'll accept. I mean, just to be respectful and everything like that, and we just have a good time. We just have a good time discussing film, talking about different topics and stuff like that. It's real fun. So join the community. Come join in the discussions. We have a good time. So we love the interaction in the Facebook group. So come contribute to it. Come join it. It's a blast. So, but yeah, that's all I have, man.
All right. Well, later, guys.
Later.